We will make America great again. Thank you, Arizona. God bless you. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, what do you say to that?
Awesome. This is Worst Journalist of the Year, Don Lemon, Worst Journalist of the Year. And no, ladies and gentlemen, and yes, I just assumed your genders, that is not a proprietary moniker of my own invention. Worst Journalist of the Year, Don Lemon, who is the Worst Journalist of the Year, is quite literally the recipient of Columbia Journalism Review's award for Worst Journalist of the Year, and while I'm no deductive genius, I imagine it has something to do with saying stuff like this.
That's like, I got that bubbly, I got that bubbly, I got that bubbly, I got that, I got that, I got that bubbly. You haven't seen that?
I don't know who that is.
All right.
On a network that shows stuff like this.
Can you give us your favorite verse from the song?
I need you more than ever, and if you only hold me tight, we'll be holding on forever.
Imagine, if you will, that you have recently suffered a debilitating head injury by way of a morbidly obese elephant landing on your head at terminal velocity, and you'll arrive at a version of yourself roughly 3 orders of magnitude more coherent than Don Lemon's "Hey, everyone needs a good laugh, let me just open my mouth" meltdown on live television following President Donald Trump's speech in Phoenix, Arizona.
I'm just going to speak from the heart here. What we have witnessed was a total eclipse of the facts.
Forever.
For one, when your quote from the heart improvisation poaches the language of a major celestial event literally yesterday, it's kinda hard for me to keep pretending I don't already know that you're reading a script on a teleprompter so you can hit all the prefabricated alt-left buzzwords. But there must be a God, because this statement is the least ridiculous thing Worst Journalist of the Year Don Lemon, who is the Worst Journalist of the Year, says in this soon-to-be-made into Japanese torture porn suicide attempt.
Someone who came out on stage and lied directly to the American people and left things out that he said in an attempt to rewrite history, especially when it comes to Charlottesville. He's unhinged. It's embarrassing.
Will you let me finish? Will you let me finish, Ben, before we... I can shoot off a number. Why does it have to be... Everybody wanted to...
And I don't mean for us, the media, because he went after us, but for the country. This is who we elected President of the United States.
The ultimate irony of Worst Journalist of the Year, Don Lemon, who is the Worst Journalist of the Year's tantrum, is that, completely by accident, every single thing he says can accurately be applied to the very speech he is giving.
A man who is so petty that he has to go after people who he deems to be his enemy, like an imaginary friend of a 6-year-old.
In fact, perhaps the only way to make sense of this seizure is to imagine that Worst Journalist of the Year, Don Lemon, Worst Journalist of the Year, is talking not about President Donald Trump, but instead about Worst Journalist of the Year, Don Lemon, Worst Journalist of the Year. That certainly seems to be what President Trump is implying anyway, because if you look carefully, you can see him point straight at Don Lemon's stupid face as Don Lemon says this.
A man who is so petty that he has to go after people who he deems to be his enemy, like an imaginary friend of a 6-year-old. It was devoid of facts. It was devoid of wisdom. There was no gravitas. There was no sanity there. He was like a child blaming a sibling on something else. He did it. I didn't do it.
In closing, simply sit back, relax, and enjoy Worst Journalist of the Year, Don Lemon, Worst Journalist of the Year, talking about Worst Journalist of the Year, Don Lemon, Worst Journalist of the Year.
A man clearly wounded by the rational people who are abandoning him in droves, and the people in Washington now who are questioning his fitness and whether he is stable. A man backed into a corner, it seems, by circumstances beyond his control and beyond his understanding. That's the truth.